Taoiseach, it's not an exaggeration to say that Budget 2022 ghosted agriculture. By and large, it didn't feature. Yes, schemes were rolled over and some small, very welcome, but small investments were made in forestry, organic farming, etc. But there was nothing new. There was nothing substantial for a sector that is supposed to do much of the heavy lifting when it comes to reducing emissions. Now, current programmes will not deliver those reductions, and farmers were waiting for policy options and support in the interim between now and the start of the new CAP in 2023. And can I say, Taoiseach, that if past experience is anything to go by, it can take quite a length of time for a lot of those programmes to bed in. Now, farmers have been promised a just transition. So what's the evidence of change so far? The evidence is we are importing peat from Latvia. Now, Latvia is in the European Union. They have the same laws as we have. We are importing wood from Scotland and the real possibility of significantly increasing the importation of tonnages of beef from Brazil. Now, that's the reality, literally, on the ground for farmers. But it wasn't just, Taoiseach, that agriculture was overlooked when it came to new supports. It's the sting in the tail when it comes, for example, to the reduction in the flat rate VAT, I think 5.6 to 5.5%, 0.1%. Doesn't sound like much, but it means 7 million to farmers. But it was also the fact that 49 million from carbon tax receipts that were supposed to go into agriculture has been deferred to social welfare. Now, deferred. My question is there no policy or programme to support the agricultural sector in decarbonising? A statement from the Department of Agriculture tells us the needs, and this is an exact quote, the needs of the Department of Agriculture for 2022 were met without recourse to carbon tax. This is simply a matter of scheduling. Well, Taoiseach, the needs of the department may have been met, but the needs of farmers were not. And there's this narrative out there that we wait for the CAP and the CAP will sort out all the problems. I'm running out of time, but just one fact. The basic payment which farmers rely on, 25% of that is now for eco schemes under increased requirements, asked to do more with less.
Thanks, Deputy. I think you raise a valid question in relation to the ring fencing of some of the carbon tax for green schemes and for farmers. But I don't think it's the full picture in terms of the budget. What we agreed to when the government was formed was that a proportion of the carbon tax would be ring fenced for social welfare to increase the fuel allowance. We did that. We stand over that. But that also a significant proportion of the carbon tax will be ring-fenced for climate action. That includes retrofitting, most of which is happening in rural Ireland, but also for farmers as well. And farmers will benefit to the tune of €1.5 billion this decade, directly from the proceeds of the carbon tax. I stand over that commitment. The Minister for the Environment, Mr Ryan, repeated it yesterday here in the Dáil in his speech, and Minister McConaughey stands over that too. So €1.5 billion in carbon tax proceeds will go to farmers this decade. A decision was taken to start that in 2023 in line with the new CAP. And Minister McConaughey can explain the details for that, but it does make sense to do it at the start of the new CAP period in 2023. But they will get the full 1.5 billion between 23 and 30, and I can reiterate that commitment here today. In terms of the budget as a whole, the budget contained €4 billion for farmers, 1.86 billion through the Department of Agriculture and 1.2 billion through EU schemes. It's a 2% increase on 2021 and an 11% increase on budget 2020. As you mentioned, all of the major farm schemes are protected, and that's real money to real farmers. And there were a number of new measures. 4 million, for example, was allocated to the establishment of the National Food Ombudsman and the Food Regulator, and that's a really important body we want to set up. It's been done very much at the request of farmers, and will have a role in ensuring that farmers get a fairer price, or get a fair price rather, for the beef and the other products that they sell to market. Also in tax, the stamp duty relief for young trained farmers and stock relief were renewed, and the budget for Teagasc has been increased by 7 million, which is important as well in terms of science and research into agricultural issues. As well as that, I think it's important to bear in mind that farmers are workers and members of society too, and they will benefit from many of the changes made in the budget. Farmers pay income tax, so they will benefit from the reductions in income tax announced in the budget. Many farmers are in receipt of welfare payments. Some are pensioners, some are carers, some receive farm assist. All of those increase in the budget. Some will benefit from the healthcare changes, reduced medicine costs, for example. Many have students who are going to college. They may benefit from the increase in the student grant, or the fact that the distance changes are being made, and that's quite important for rural Ireland too. And others have children in childcare, and they will benefit potentially from the freeze and fees. So I think it is true to say that there were new measures that will benefit farmers and rural Ireland in particular.
Taoiseach, you're absolutely right. Farmers, their families are all members of society, and they benefit from some of the changes in the budget. But it was promised that there would be a ring fencing of a certain proportion of the money from the carbon tax for agriculture, and we're being told, oh yes, you'll get it, but not now, not yet. And my question, and still stands, is the department not ready with programmes to roll out so that this money can be spent? Now, you said there was a 2% increase. Now, look, I'm not an expert on looking at budgets, but when you look at the appropriations in aid, in fact, the spend in 2022 is 2% less than the spend in 2021. So there's been an increase in administration, animal welfare and other areas. But when it comes to the back pocket, Taoiseach, for farmers having money there is nothing in this budget that's specifically for them. And a final point, carbon tax. Look at the ESRI report, and it tells us here on page 22, that rural households face significantly higher prices than urban households when it comes to carbon tax. And in the same budget, we see that what was supposed to be ring-fenced is not going back to the sector.
To conclude.
Thanks, Deputy. A large portion of the carbon tax proceeds will go towards increasing the fuel allowance, and a lot of people in rural Ireland will get that increase, and they're getting it this week, in fact, if not this week, next week. And a lot of the retrofitting that's happening is happening in rural areas too. Same thing goes for the bog rewetting and so on. So a very large amount of the money that's raised from the carbon tax is going back into rural areas. But I want to restate the commitment that the government has made. 1.5 billion in proceeds from carbon tax will be ring-fenced for farmers for agricultural schemes. 1.5 billion between 2023 and 2030. It'll come online with the new cap. The Minister and the Government has taken the decision that the right time to do that is when the new cap comes into place in 2023, and we have all those new schemes. We're just rolling over the existing schemes at the moment, and that 1.5 billion will start flowing into farmers' pockets and into farmers' yards in a little over a year from now.